Okay, let's get started. So, you're all going to do a presentation. Are you excited? Do you have butterflies? Do you get nervous? Do you like English? Do you hate English? I guess you don't hate English, eh? I hope you don't hate English. Okay, so I'm going to try and help you with your presentations. Before I start, I'll tell you a little bit about me. So, who am I? Francisco Volstad. That's my name. Okay. I work here at Kyoto University. Okay. Usually I work teaching first-year students, okay, academic writing. And I work teaching PhD students academic writing and presentation skills, basically how to do all of the things they need to do to be an academic. I'm a little bit interesting among teachers in that I have been to university many times. So that means that I'm probably quite a good person to teach academic skills for a broad range of topics. Okay. Most people who are English teachers did a degree in English or history, social studies maybe. But in my case, my first degree is in Japanese. Japanese language, Japanese history, culture, interpreting and translation. だから実は日本語でも大丈夫です。もし英語が嫌やだったらもうちょっと、全部英語でやるんかい。まあ日本語でも OK。できるだけ英語でやりたい。英語でやると、まあ一石二鳥という考え方がある。まず一つ言ったら、日本語でやると、英語のプレゼンをするのが変な気持ちになる。みんなに見本を見せながらちょっとプレゼンをやっていきたいので、英語でできるだけやりたい。そうすると、本当に手を使ってジェスチャーをする。まあ歩き回っていいけど、日本語になってくると、なんかじっと座った方がいいかなと思ってくる。はい、皆さん、今日はよろしくお願いいたします。でも、英語のプレゼンというのは、英語でやるしかないなと思います。So, Japanese is okay. And also, I have a degree in economics and biology. That's why I also work out at Katsura, doing the postgraduate studies. Okay? At Katsura, I teach biology students how to do presentations for biology in English. I also have degrees in education and applied linguistics, 応用言語学. So I hope that I will be able to help you with a broad range of presentations. If you have a presentation on physics, maybe I'm okay. If you have a presentation on law, maybe I'm okay. Some things I am not good at. If you do a presentation on art or music or poetry, I'm really not good. I'll be honest. But I'll try and do my best to help you anyway. Okay? Each topic, each type of presentation is a little bit different. So that's why it's important that you have someone who knows a little bit about different topics. Okay? Originally, I'm from New Zealand. So I've been living in Japan for, what, 13 years now. Quite a long time. And I was a student at Kyoto University for 4 years. I like Japan very much, and I like helping students present in English. For the last few years, I have taught the presentation topic for the symposium, and I've also been a judge at the symposium. So I hope that I can give you some idea of what we expect. Okay. What else can I tell you about myself? I like hiking. I like listening to music. You heard Katy Perry. Okay. I live in Kyoto, in Kitaku, near Bivide. That's just a little bit about me. So, what are we going to do in the presentation time that we have? Firstly, please understand our time is very short. I have 4 sessions. Wow. Usually, to teach presentation, it would take 1 semester, 15 sessions. Okay? So I've tried to take the really important skills and teach them to you as fast as I can. Okay? I hope it works. Week 1, that's today. We're going to do presentation basics. Okay? Really simple things. What size should your font be? Can you all see this? Okay. So my size is okay. What color should your font be? Black is easy to see, right? That kind of basic stuff. In week 2, we're going to look at how to structure your presentation. Okay? How to build it. Not just the basics of what color and things like that, but what to say first. You know, do you start your presentation with questions? Hello everybody, my topic is biology in the 21st century. What questions do you have? That's possible. You could do that. But we'll look at some good ways to structure your presentation. In the third week, also in the second week, we will be starting straight away with practicing your presentation. Some of the participants from last year have said they really thought it would be useful to have a lot of practice. So right from next week, I want you to be presenting. You're going to stand up and talk. Okay? Next week. In week 3, we're going to get on to using metaphor. Okay? The way you use English. The way you talk in English. Okay? Hiyu metaphor. And again, practice your presentations. Finally, we're going to put it all together, and you're going to be presenting, and I will be giving you feedback, and other people will be giving you feedback. So this is a chance for you to have a last practice. So as you can see, I'll be teaching some topics, but I also want to make sure that you have time to practice. Okay? So, what will these sessions do? What won't these sessions do? I will outline how to make your presentation, give you an idea of how to put a presentation together. I won't make it for you. Sorry. Okay? You actually have to do the work. I'll show you how to use the English you have to make the presentation. Basically, what that means is that I won't teach you English. I'll use English, I'll help you with your English, but we have 4 weeks. I'm not going to teach you English. I'll give you a chance to practice your English. And then other people, other participants, and I can help you with it. But I don't promise that your English will be perfect for the presentation. Remember, I might be one of the judges. So I'm not going to tell you every mistake I think you made. That's your job, to check with each other, to check yourself, to check with your friends. I'll give you some feedback. If you make 10 mistakes, I might tell you about 1 or 2 which I think are important. If I tell you all 10, it's too much. So you have to go through and you have to correct it yourself. Here are some of the things that I want to have a look at today, okay, in our presentation for today. I want to have a look at the difference between a paper, something you might send to a journal or get published, and a presentation. Okay, maybe you're writing a paper on the same topic or have written a paper on the same topic as your presentation. If you have already written your paper, why not stand up, read your paper? Will that work? We'll talk about that. I'll look at PowerPoint presentations versus poster presentations. If you go to a conference, sometimes there's a PowerPoint presentation like this. And sometimes there's a poster presentation where you have one person here, one person here, one person here, 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 here. Everybody has one big poster. You come to me and talk to me, I explain the poster. Then you can go to the next poster. You can move around. Okay? So there are different types of presentation. Also, I'll talk about the difference between English presentations and Japanese presentations. Using your hands, style of presentation. I want to talk about the basics of making a PowerPoint presentation, because that's what you're going to do. And I want to give you a little preview of next week, so that you can go home and make a presentation to show us for next week. So, different types of presentations. Papers versus presentations. PowerPoints versus posters. English versus Japanese. What do you think is different? What is your image? Have a think about it. Key information should be the same. Right? I mean, if it's completely different, that's a problem. If your paper is biology and your presentation is physics or history, something has gone wrong. They should be about the same topic, basically saying the same things. Why should they be different at all? Why not just read your paper? What about PowerPoint versus poster? Poster can be many A4 sheets. Print out your PowerPoint, make a poster. Is that okay? Will that work? English versus Japanese. Well, they should be the same, right? Just translation. Really? Here are my ideas for what makes these different. Now remember, you will do a PowerPoint presentation. So I'm going to tell you about some differences, and I want you to be thinking about your PowerPoint presentation. So for me, the difference between papers and presentations is all about control. Right now, I'm in control. You're listening to me, and I can speak faster if I want, or I can speak slower if I want. I can go through the slides like this, or I can go through them slowly. I'm in control. You go at my speed. In fact, you might have noticed that I started off the presentation slowly, and I'm slowly starting to speed up. Why? Because I'm speaking in English. You see, if I started off speaking in English at the speed that I would usually do a presentation, which is about this speed, you'd be thinking, wow, that's just too fast. So I start off slowly, and I speed up. You won't have to do that, because you can speak in English to people who you know are used to speaking in English. But I want to make sure you understand me. So I start slow, and I speed up, and you don't notice. Okay? I'm in control. If you write a paper, the reader is in control. With a paper, the reader can read at their own speed. They can put it down, go and do a phone call. They can use a dictionary, check words they don't know. If you write a paper, using big words, difficult words, is fine. People can go and use the dictionary. If you do a presentation, and your presentation is full of difficult words, even native speakers won't understand you. Presentations have to be easier than papers. Differences between a PowerPoint and a poster presentation. Thinking about this idea of control again. In a PowerPoint, the presenter is in control. We go at my speed. In a poster presentation, the audience is just small. You're standing on the side. You can ask questions. You can come and go. Okay? So a poster presentation is closer to a paper for a journal, because the audience has more control. Time. Time is restricted for PowerPoint presentations. In your case, really restricted. Right now, you might be worried about standing up in front of hundreds of people. You might be thinking, 5 minutes is too long. How can I speak English for 5 minutes? No. 5 minutes is too short. I guarantee it. 5 minutes is not enough. You want more time. But you are not in control of the time. You have to do it in 5 minutes. With a poster presentation, you have more time. People can sit around, you can talk, they can come, they can go. Okay? So this gives you a bit of an idea about a PowerPoint. A PowerPoint presentation, remember, you're in control of the speed you go at, of the words you use, how fast you go through the slides. But you are restricted in how much time you have. English versus Japanese presentations. These are kind of my ideas. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? But my personal perception is that English presenters try to be fun. Let's enjoy ourselves. Put some music on at the start. Talk to you one-to-one. Japanese presenters try to be academic. They try to show you their research was really good. I am very smart. I did good research. Okay? Usually English presentations are interactive. If you have questions, you can ask me now. Maybe I might ask you some questions. Last year we had some like that, some presentations where there was audience participation. I almost never see this in a Japanese presentation. Very technical. Okay? An English presentation is audience-centered. That means my presentation is about you. If you don't understand, I made a mistake. Japanese presentations are presenter-centered. I am very smart. I did some good research. If you don't understand my presentation, you are stupid. Wow. No wonder Japanese people don't ask questions. Think about it. In an English presentation, do you have any questions? Yes, I have a question, because your presentation was not good. I didn't understand. It's your fault. So I have a question. In a Japanese presentation, do you have any questions? Well, if I say yes, I must be stupid. It's my fault I didn't understand. Energetic. English presentations, you know, I get up there, hey, everybody, let's jump. Japanese presentations tend to be very quiet, sit down, don't move around so much. You've almost never seen a Japanese presenter walk down the room, right? But sometimes you can get really close to people. That's okay. It's better. So there are definitely some differences between English presentations and Japanese presentations, between PowerPoints and posters, between papers for a journal and a presentation. And I hope this gives you an idea of some of those basic differences. What makes an English presentation an English presentation? Now, for most of today, I want to talk about Presentation 101, Presentation Basics. That means that today I'm going to go really quite fast. I have a lot of topics to cover. I don't expect you to remember everything. I want to give you some ideas so that when you make your presentation, you will think, ちょっと待って、なんか色について言ったな。何を言ったかな。色について、忘れてる。でも色が大事だな。ちょっと Google で検索しよう。Okay? That's all I expect. I don't expect you to remember. I will tell you what size of font is good. Do you need to take notes? No. Go home, you have Google, right? I will try and use information that you can find on the internet anywhere. So actually, several of my slides come from the internet. Okay? If you go on the internet and you Google how to present in English, you will get PowerPoint presentations about presenting. Okay? All the information I'm going to give you is available easily on the internet. My hope is just to give you some things to think about. Okay? That's all. Now, before we start, I want to show you one of last year's presentations. That will give you the big picture. Okay? What does a presentation look like? There we go. We're going to use this one or this one? Put it. So this is one of the presentations from last year. And the first thing to notice is that I think this camera is zoomed in. Okay, because the presentation hall is very big. You have a big screen and it's way back to the back. Let's go. Can you pause? Okay, so some things that are very good about this is that obviously the PowerPoint is very easy to see. Okay? So the basics are definitely there. Nice, black, white, easy to see, right? Nice big letters. The voice was a little bit hard to hear. The English is very good, but the pitch is high. Often women speak with a very high-pitched voice. High-pitched voices don't carry to the back. Low-pitched voices carry right across the room. Okay? There is a difference. If you are a woman and you want people to hear you, lower your voice pitch or raise the volume. Often we say, you know, when you're speaking to someone from another language, don't shout! You can speak normally. That's true. But if you are a long way away, you have to speak in a loud voice. You have to make sure that they can hear you easily. Not just hear you easily. Okay, let's press play again. This one is a bit hard to see. At the time, it's easier to see. Actually, the picture is easier to see. So very good animation. A bit hard to see on this one, but at the time it was not so hard. Each slide has a very small amount of information. Only key information. Words like this one, which are very hard to understand, should always be up on the presentation. People can't hear them. It's Latin. It's the name of a biological name. People won't know it just because you said it. Maybe your pronunciation is hard for people to hear. English is getting easier to hear. As she relaxes, her voice gets a bit deeper, she slows down, the English gets easier. You want to be easy to hear right from the start. Relax first. Slow down first. Then go up on stage. Simple to understand diagrams are very useful. We say a picture is worth 1,000 words. If you put 1,000 words on your PowerPoint, nobody can read it. But if you put a picture up, everybody can see it. very simple way to illustrate ideas. If you made sentences to explain this, it would be very difficult. Changing the information that's available. If the pictures are there from the start, people get distracted. Finish one topic, add the new topic you're talking about. One problem with the presentation style we have is that the presenter keeps looking at the presentation. Okay? A better presentation style is to be able to present like this. Okay? Now I'm always facing you because I can see down here. If you're working off a big screen, it's often easier if you come forward a little bit and to the side. Okay? Now I can look at you and I can still see the screen. If I come close to the screen, when I look at you, I can't see the screen without turning around. Okay? Okay, can we stop? Okay, so that gives you an idea of what a presentation's like. I hope you noticed at least two things. One, that the PowerPoint needs to be simple and clear. And two, even with all the practice, her English is hard to understand. Okay? For people sitting and listening, it's actually hard to understand you sometimes. You really want to practice your English again and again and again. It's not just the grammar. Usually, I don't tell people that pronunciation is so important. Lots of people think, I have to speak like a native speaker, I have to speak like a native speaker. This is not true. If you go to Germany, German people will say, speak like an English person? No, I am not English. I want to speak like a German person. They're very proud of that. German accent is good. That's fine. Accent, no problem. If people can understand you, okay? If it's difficult to understand you, you need to change the way you talk. You need to practice that. Record your presentations. Listen to them again and again and again. Okay, let's change the computers back. Okay, any questions yet? You sure? Oh, yes, go.
How about body gesture?
Body gesture. I will talk about body gestures either next time or the time after that. Do you have a specific question about body gestures?
We need to make gestures through a presentation.
Do you need to? No. You don't need to. Is it a good idea? Well, if you simply sit and present, it's a little bit boring. You want to keep people awake, get them interested. If you are talking about something which is interesting and you come to the edge of the stage, people get excited. If you move around, people get a feeling that the presentation is dynamic, that it's moving. If you sit still, people get a feeling that the presentation is not moving. Okay? So in an English presentation, I suggest that you use your hands, that you walk around a little bit. You might not do it as much as me. What is comfortable for you? What feels good for you? It's up to you to think about. I'll talk a little bit about what kind of gestures are useful. For example, some gestures really hammer home the point. This is important. And some gestures really don't make you look like you want to talk to people. Okay? There is a difference. Okay? Any more questions? Yes?
Okay. I'd like to moving walking around during my presentation, but how can I manipulate the PowerPoint soft while walking around the stage or going into the research?
You are lucky if you are using a Windows computer. Generally speaking, I like Mac. Okay? One area which Windows has and Mac doesn't have is a clicker. So for a PowerPoint presentation with a Windows machine, you can click and it moves forward once. Unfortunately, there isn't any device that I can find for Mac that will do that. So in your case, you can walk around and you should have a laser pointer. So you can point at things, and on the laser pointer, click, click, next slide. Click back, go back one. Okay, it has 2 arrows. Any other questions? Yes?
Do you decide at how to move in presentation?
Do I choreograph like a dance? Choreograph, it's called. Do I, like a kata, like a dance. The answer to that is 2 answers. Firstly, do I? No. Should you? Maybe. Why? Well, 2 things. My presentation today is 1.5 hours. Making a kata for this is too much work. Your presentation is 5 minutes. That's okay. Also, I present all the time. I'm a teacher. This is my 5th lesson today. I have already presented 6 hours today. This is what I do. I do it every day. I do it Monday through Saturday. I've done it for more than 17 years. So no, I don't plan what I'm going to say. I remember I did this presentation last year. Before I came to you today, did I write down a script? No, of course not. I'm far too lazy for that. But you only have 5 minutes. You want a script. You want to think about what you will do. Okay? Once you have done it 10,000 times, you won't need to. Okay, any more questions? Okay, this is where we start the fast part of my presentation. All of the key points. Here we go. So, presentation basics. Stand out from the crowd. You want to win. That's important. You want people to remember you, to remember your message. You want to have a presentation that's different, that's interesting, not the same as everybody else. Okay? So, know your goals and know your audience. Okay? Who are you talking to? Next week I'll talk about this more, but the basic point is if you don't have a target, you can't hit your target. What are the key things you want people to know about your research? What are your key points? What are the things you have to make sure people understand? Remember that in the room there will be people from very different backgrounds. You have to make your presentation appeal to a very wide range of people. Usually, when I give a presentation, I'm talking to a small group of people. Right now, I'm presenting to you. You are all people who are interested in making an English presentation. Imagine if half of you were interested in writing an English paper. Oh no, I have to make my presentation broader. Okay? I have to talk more about how presentations and papers are the same or different. In the room, you will have many different people. Think about the way people learn. Often, when people go to make a presentation, they make the mistake of thinking that their presentation is a speech, that it's one way, and that all they have to do is memorize the speech, stand up the front, say the speech. It's not like that. When you're presenting, you are always teaching. Actually, that's the same when you're writing a paper. You have a target audience, and you want to tell them something which you know and they don't. If that's not true, go home. If you know it and they know it, well, what are you doing? You want to get a message across to them. So, your presentation is actually a teaching session. And that means you have to think about some things like, what do you want to teach? What is your target? What are you trying to get to them? And how could people learn what you want to teach? Now, this is a mistake that many teachers make, especially in Japan or Asian countries. They think, I want to teach. How can I teach? Well, that's a useless question. You don't want to ask yourself, how can I teach? You want to ask, how can my students learn? Maybe you don't want to teach. If I teach you English all day, you won't learn anything. It's much better if I say, okay, here is a small piece of English, go and practice. I don't want to teach all day. I want you to learn. You only have 5 minutes, so of course you will be teaching for the whole time, I guess. Some people don't. There is audience interaction is okay. But you want to be thinking, how can the audience understand my ideas? Not how can I teach my ideas. That's a different way of thinking. It's little changes like that that really make a big difference. You know, just changing the way you're thinking. Can I ask you to help me? Could you stand up? Could you please put on my jacket? Yes. Watch carefully. Okay, it's a little big, but you know, easy to put on. Okay, take it off. Which arm did he put in first? Right arm or left arm? Which arm went in first? Right hand. Okay, can you put your left hand in first? Okay, put it on, but left hand first. How does that feel? Is it okay?
Yeah.
No problem for you?
Yes.
Wow, that's very unusual. Let's all try. Can I take the jacket and I will show you? Unfortunately, I don't have a jacket for all of you, but we can try a similar one. Please cross your arms. Which hand is on top? Your right or your left? In my case, my right. Some people it's your left. Okay, do it, take your arms out, do it the other way. Does it feel strange? To me it feels strange. Okay? Even when I put my hands up, I wonder, does that go to the right? How does it go? It's only a small change. Putting on your jacket the other way around is just a small change. Okay? But it feels sometimes kind of uncomfortable. Does it go this way? Where is the sleeve? Is your arm going this way? Small changes can be very difficult to do. The difference between sitting still and moving about is a small change. You need to practice though. If you want it to look natural, you need to do it the way you are used to doing it, and then you need to practice the new way until it feels natural. If you're going to use gestures, practice your gestures. Okay? I want you to be thinking creatively. I want you to have lots of different ideas, different ways of doing things. Okay? But be organized. Creative doesn't mean messy. Okay? You have to think of new ideas, new ways of doing things, put it in a simple, organized way. Simple is a key idea. One of the most important things, one of the things you really need to remember, practice, practice, practice. Okay? You have to practice 100 times. That's really true. For learning anything, there's what we call the 10,000 hour rule. Okay? This is the idea that to be a professional at something, not just to drive a car, but to be a race car driver. Not just to play a piano, but professionally play a piano, it takes 10,000 hours. Now, whether the time is exactly 10,000 hours, is this research true or not true, I don't know. But the idea is true. You need to practice to be good. Using PowerPoints, you need to think about some really simple ideas. How many slides? Okay. What content? What color? Simple things like that make a difference. How many slides? My idea, you have 5 minutes, 5 to 10 slides. One slide per 30 seconds to 1 minute. Okay? That's usually what I think about. You might be able to get in a few more, okay, because it's only a short time. You could do 12. If you have 20 slides, that means one slide in every 25 seconds. That's really quite quick. Okay? Think about that. Making PowerPoint slides, okay? Avoiding the dangers of bad slides. PowerPoint slides are basically easy to use. Okay? It's very simple to do, but there are some very simple mistakes. I'll show you more later, but for example, I'm using all black, all white background. It's boring, you think. I thought you were going to show us how to make interesting slides where the words zoom around the screen. Hey, don't you have some new 3D slides? No, I don't. PowerPoint is nothing special. It's not a magic wand. It's just like a whiteboard. It's just that it's quicker and easier. Here are the tips that I'm going to cover right now very quickly. These are the things you might want to write down, because later on you might want to go and check these. Okay? Outlines, slide structure, fonts, color, background, like white, using a graph, spelling and grammar, conclusions, and questions. Okay? Okay, I'm going to quickly skip through these. Number 1, outline. Make your first or second slide an outline of your presentation. The previous slide was an outline. Big picture. Okay? Make it an outline. Follow the order of your outline for the rest of the presentation. So if you go back, you will see number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is my order. Now you know my order. It's easy to understand. On the outline slide, only have main ideas. Outlines, not details. Outlines. Make your third or fourth slide the outline. Okay, you don't want that. Key ideas. Okay, a good slide structure is simple with lots of white. Okay? 4 to 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. Short sentences, not big long words, long sentences. Up here, you don't have to use long sentences. You can just use a short key idea. It doesn't even have to be a sentence. Your English should be in good sentences. Your PowerPoint slide doesn't need to be. This is a bad slide. We're not giving people a book to read. It's too hard to read, too much work. Okay, another good structure. Show one point at a time. If you put all the points up at once, people start reading point 3 while you're talking about point 1. They're not listening to you, so they don't understand. Okay? That helps the audience concentrate and stops them reading ahead and keeps you talking about what you want to talk about. Bad slides are distracting with lots of different kinds of animation. Okay? You want to keep your slides simple. Some ideas for fonts. That's the kind of letters you use. Okay? Use at least 18 point. Okay? Anything smaller than that is too small. That will also keep the number of words on the page down. Okay? Use different size fonts for the main points and for the sub-points. Okay? This one is 24 point. Okay? This is 28. The title at the top is 36. Types of fonts, Calibri, Times New Roman, or Arial are very standard fonts, like what you might see in a newspaper. Okay? This is not a good slide. Too small to read, too complicated to read. Capitals are difficult to read, not easy. People think they're easy, they are not. They're difficult. For colour, it's okay to use colour. There's nothing wrong with using colour. But you want to keep it simple. And there are some colours which are good to use, like black and blue, and some colours which are more hard to see. Okay? You can use the colour to show a key point. Blue font written in blue is a good idea. But if I write every second letter in a different colour, it's just no point. Can you read the yellow? We don't use yellow on the whiteboard. This is one of the first things you learn at Teachers College for teachers. Don't write in yellow. Okay? Don't write in rainbow. You will not, I tell you right now, if you write in rainbow, I'm not going to let you win. Okay? Unless there is a reason for it. Have a look at the different colours. What colours are easy to see? Yellow is the worst. It's the hardest to see against a white background. Pick your background and your colour for your fonts together. Okay? Good backgrounds are simple. Use the same background for each slide. You don't want to have a keep changing. One is blue, one is red, one has a picture in the background. Just use the same. I found this on the internet as an example of a terrible background. Okay? When you present your data, or data, depending on how you want to say it, it's much easier if you use graphs than if you use words and numbers. Especially when people are looking at it, they don't understand what the letters, what the words and the numbers mean. If you show them a graph or a table, it makes it a lot easier to understand. Okay? This one here is very hard to understand compared to this one here, even though you're presenting the same information. Again, these slides come straight off the internet as examples of presentation. Okay? You can find this information on the internet, no problem. Okay? Here we have a title, easy to see, simple bars, simple lines, well indicated. We have a key over here, big enough to read from the back. Okay, blue balls, red balls. If for some reason you have a small font, read it to people. If you think it's hard to see, blue balls, red balls. Okay, help them out. Again, there are some mistakes you can make. This one here is a graph, that's great, but we're using colours which are hard to see. We have too many lines, which makes the graph difficult to see. There's no title. I can't read the labels down here or the numbers up the side very well. The key is impossible to see. Okay? So these are just the key points about bar graphs. Okay? Just what I've explained already. Spelling and grammar. When you make mistakes in your spelling, people will notice. You only have a few words on each slide, so make sure they are correct. Everybody makes mistakes. Get someone else to check it. Okay? That's your best way of doing it. Find someone else in the group. Check each other's. More than one person can win. You have a better chance of winning if you work together. Okay? If you get too much thinking about the competition, you're not going to do well. You want to help each other and work together so that you all do well. If English is not your first language, all of you, wherever possible, make sure that everything in your presentation is checked by a native speaker, if you can, or by another Japanese person. Okay? Native speaker, sure, that's great. If you can't do that, at least get it checked by someone else. Your conclusion, okay? The end of your presentation. Make sure your conclusion is strong. Don't say maybe. The data indicates. It shows. Okay? Make a summary on your conclusion. Make sure that you suggest what could be done in the future. Finally, you will have quite a long time for questions. At that time you need a slide, which is a simple question slide. Something like this. Just to tell people it's time to ask questions. Okay? Invite your audience to ask questions. Go ahead. So, do you have any questions? Remember, your body language counts. So, does anybody have any questions? So, does anybody have any questions? It's different. Okay? Invite people to ask you questions. Try not to end the presentation abruptly. Have a question slide, and then maybe go back and do some key points again. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit more detailed about questions, just a little bit. We only have a few minutes. So here are some ideas. When you're talking about questions, are the questions going to come before, during, or after your presentation? Okay? You could start off with questions first in a presentation, especially if you are a real expert. So, my topic for today will be New Zealand history. What would you like to know about New Zealand history? Well, that's one way to start. Often English presentations have questions during the presentation as we go. Questions during the presentation are very useful. People get involved and people don't get left behind. If you can't ask questions, sometimes people don't understand. You only have 5 minutes and you have question time at the end. So in your case, your questions will come after. Okay? What kind of questions will people ask you? I'll try and talk about this more in the future when we're doing practice. But here are some basic types of questions somebody might ask you. For example, a basic question about the actual topic you have presented. Excuse me, how many people was that who went to Australia? This is about your topic, something they didn't understand. You must answer this. If you don't answer, they don't understand. That's not good for your presentation, it's not good for your mark in this case. Okay? Difficult or long questions about the topic. Sometimes people will ask you really difficult questions. You are just starting your research and they will ask you a question you can't really answer. You don't know the answer. Or you know the answer but it's very long. In this case, I suggest give a quick answer. Show that you understand why this question is important. Okay? Just an answer that's long enough to show, I understand your question, I understand why it's important, but right now I don't have the answer, or the answer is too long. So, please talk to me after the presentation. Okay? But the question is about the topic. So don't just say, please talk to me after the presentation, that question is too long. Or it's about your topic. You should know. Pretend you know. Well, that's a very important question. We also asked ourselves this question, and we have some data about this question. Right now, I don't have the data on my slides. Can I talk to you after the presentation? Okay? Sounds like I understood. Sounds like I know the answer. Actually, after the presentation, yes, very good question. I have no idea. What do you think? Okay? Presentation is finished. Sounds much better. Sometimes people will ask you what I call what-if questions. What-if questions means, I understand what you said, but what if this were different? What if we change this? Ah, that's a very good way of teaching English at Kyoto University. What if you were teaching at Seikadai, at Ritsumeikan? I don't want to answer this. My presentation is not about Seikadai or Ritsumeikan. My presentation is about teaching English at Kyoto University. Everybody listening knows I don't need to answer this. So I just be polite. I be kind. Well, that's an interesting question. Unfortunately, I only investigated teaching English at Kyoto University, so I can't answer that right now. If you'd like to talk to me after the presentation, I'm happy to discuss it. No answer at all. I'm not pretending to know. I don't even care. Okay? I'm being polite, I'm being nice, I'm offering to talk to them after the presentation. Okay? They might ask me about the future. Well, that's very interesting research you have about Kyoto University. Now many children do English in primary school. How do you think that will change the way you teach English? It's a very good question. I don't have time to answer this. Yes, I agree. I think that primary school English will change the way that we teach English at universities. I'm not sure exactly how it will change it, but I'd love to talk to you about it after my presentation. Okay? But if you ask me a question about my presentation, I can't do that. Oh, that's very interesting information you have about teaching English at Kyoto University. Do you think that the subject the students are studying, their major, changes the way you should teach English? I can't say good question, I'll talk about it later. This is important. I must answer something now. Finally, one strategy for questions. Only 5 minutes, that's not so long. You can leave some holes in your presentation. Some points you want people to ask questions about. Okay? It's kind of like Sakura, putting people in the audience to clap for you. People in the audience to ask questions. You want to make them ask certain questions, so you don't tell them the answer. Then they ask you that question, you answer that question, time is finished, thank you very much. Okay? You can be strategic about your presentation. Finally, when you finish your presentation, if you can, don't finish with the questions. State the main point of your presentation. Thank you very much for your presentations today. I've really enjoyed presenting to you. I hope you all have a much better understanding of how we teach English at Kyoto University now. Okay? Not just having the message come across, right, we're out of time, just walk off. Okay? It's better if you can say something at the end. So finally, what questions do you have? No questions? Okay, we went through it very fast. Okay? Once again, I don't expect you to have remembered everything I said. I do expect you to remember the topics I talked about. Color, size. Okay? These kind of things are important. Finally. No questions? Sure? Yes, go.
Is it good to use Sakura?
Well, that depends on what you mean by Sakura. if you mean, is it good to have a whole lot of your friends come and ask very, very simple questions, that probably won't work well, because we will notice that the questions are too simple, right? If you mean, is it good to tell your friends one question to ask? Yes, it is. I mean, honestly, not speaking as the judge, I would say no. As someone teaching you how to do presentations, yes, that's quite useful to have one question pre-prepared. It makes you look good. Okay? People often do this at presentations. If it's a real question, which is really important, that's okay. Okay? People often ask professors, ask their students to come to their presentations. Please come to my presentation. Their students don't ask them difficult questions they can't answer. Their students ask questions that are important questions. They listen to the presentation, they think, the professor didn't mention this topic, but that was very important. I will ask him a question or her a question. That's okay. If every question you try and use Sakura, it won't work, because you don't decide who gets to ask a question. Someone will walk around with a microphone. You have to be ready for any question. But if you have a friend who can come and ask one good question, maybe that's good. Or, as I said, when I said Sakura, I said you can leave some points open for questions. Okay? Leave some points that you know people will ask questions about. Design your presentation to control the questions. That's good too. Okay. Any other questions? No? Finally, before we finish up today, I want to pre-teach next week a little bit, just very quickly. So, when you are preparing your presentation, which we will practice next week, okay? Next week, we won't practice with you up the front. You're just going to talk, two people, okay? One person presents a little bit, other person listens. Present, listen. Very simple, okay? One very important point about my style of presenting is about how you do your introduction, your main body, and your conclusion. Okay? Here is my suggestion. Your introduction needs to give the big picture. Okay? I will tell you much more about this next week. But if your introduction simply says what you will talk about today, it's not good enough. If you start your introduction with, today I will talk about the breeding habits of Japanese frogs, that's not a good introduction. A good introduction is something like, in recent years around the world, the population of frogs has been declining. We believe that there are several reasons for this. One reason might be pollution in our waterways. This means that frogs are a very good measure of pollution. Today, I would like to talk to you about the breeding cycle of Japanese frogs and how this relates to the decline in frogs around the world. Okay? So I have a big picture and I bring it down to my details. I didn't do research on frogs all around the world. I went and looked just at Japanese frogs. But I need to tell you why that's important. Why are you listening to me? The example that I like to use is this. Today my presentation will be on cow farts. That's right, ushi no onara. What? Cow farts? Why am I here? I don't want to listen to a presentation on cow farts. What about this? In recent days, global warming has become the biggest threat to life on Earth ever. If you read any newspaper anywhere in the world, you will have seen that there is now no question the world is warming. Within our lifetime, the world will warm by 4 degrees. This is not a small problem. After the world warms by an average of 2 degrees, several countries in the Pacific will disappear as the ice caps melt. We need to be combating global warming. Often people talk about cars and CO2 emissions. But I come from New Zealand, and in New Zealand we only have 4 million people. We don't have many cars. We don't make that much CO2. What we do have is a lot of cows. The biggest milk producer in the world is Fonterra. Fonterra is a New Zealand company. A country with only 4 million people has the biggest milk producer in the world. New Zealand has a lot of cows. Cows' farts are methane. They are unfortunately one of the biggest contributors to global warming around the world. That's why it's so important that we research what we can do to reduce the methane emissions from cows. Today, I'm going to talk to you about just what we can do to make this reduction. Suddenly, it's a good presentation, but all I did was research cow farts. Okay? If you start in on the details, people will not listen to you. You need to have a big picture. You need to have some details. Your conclusion must go back to the big picture. This is not on the internet. This is my idea. I will talk to you more about it next week, and I promise that if you use this style, people will listen to your presentation and enjoy it. Okay? By next week, you need to have thought, what is the big picture for your presentation? Why do people need to listen to you? If you don't have that, people won't listen to you. I've heard some really good presentations about very interesting topics. I didn't know what the big picture was. I only found out the big picture halfway through the presentation. I'm listening. What the hell are they talking about? Cow farts? Methane emissions and cows' farts? Who cares? What am I here for? Finally, halfway through the presentation, oh wow, global warming. I'm interested in that. I mean, I live in Japan, I come from New Zealand. Global warming is not a good thing. Were you here for summer? 40 degrees. Imagine what 44 degrees is going to be like. I won't live here. Luckily, I come from New Zealand. I'm going home. You can't. Okay? Global warming, everyone's interested. Cow farts, not so much. So, I've tried to give you an idea of the basics you need to do a presentation. Okay? How to make a PowerPoint slide. What is the difference between an English presentation and a Japanese presentation? And I compared PowerPoint presentations to posters, to articles or papers. That's really just to give you an idea of PowerPoint presentations. I hope that I have previewed next week's lesson enough so that you will go home and you will have a big picture for your presentation. Okay? I hope that by next week you will have a few slides that you can print out onto paper. Maybe not 10, but 3 or 4 slides that you can talk about next week. Okay? You don't have to be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes. We have 3 more sessions to practice. Next week you'll be in pairs. The week after that you'll be in pairs. After that, I will listen to your presentations. Okay? So, we're up to time. Do you have any questions? Yeah.
As I make my introduction by the next week,
You should have an idea of your whole presentation. An idea. Doesn't have to be perfect. But you should have an idea. And you should have a big picture. Okay? I don't expect you to stand up the front and give your presentation. I do expect you to say, my topic is global warming. In particular, I'm looking at methane emission from cows. Okay? Big picture, your topic. Some details. My research was on how to reduce methane emission from cows. We tried feeding the cows different types of food. Some cows were fed grass outside. Some were fed hay inside a barn, a house. Some cows were fed our special methane reduction food. We got some results. We found out that our methane reducing food reduced methane emissions by 10%. We have some conclusions. The food you feed cows is important. In order to reduce methane, we should do more investigation about what foods cows should eat. I want that next week. Okay? Big picture, what research you did, some results, some conclusion. That was not 5 minutes. That was less than 1 minute. That's all I expect for next week. Maybe if you need a slide, you can print out a piece of paper. Okay? Any other questions? No? We're finished. You're welcome to come and ask me questions individually if you like. Remember, you can ask questions in Japanese. Okay? 最初に言ったように、日本語で発表するとどうしても手は使わない、動かない。日本語の発表になる。なので、基本的には英語で発表したい。でも、日本語で質問がある場合は日本語で聞いてください。日本語では質問はない？じゃあ、終わりました。どうぞ。Thank you very much.